British Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh.
Good morning, I'm Orchid Solang, and this is your news to 11:30. Richmond prepares to host a meeting for property owners related to the Cowichan Tribe's title ruling after the First Nations Leadership Council stated they are disturbed by Mayor Malcolm Brody's comments. The city sent letters to property owners in the area, land that the BC Supreme Court ruled the Cowichan Tribes hold Aboriginal title. Brody says hundreds of properties may be affected. The First Nations Council says Aboriginal title and private property ownership can coexist and is not a threat to the province. The Toronto Blue Jays are heading to the World Series. They will be taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers at home. Blue Jays manager John Schneider reviewed the matchup.
I truly think that the best two teams are left standing, for a variety of different reasons. And I'll never count my guys out of any series, you know what I mean? It's going to be fun. They're going to be up for it.
The Blue Jays have home field advantage in the best-of-7 series as they finish the regular season with 94 wins. A new study suggests Canadians could be experiencing climate change anxiety at debilitating levels. The study says that this anxiety is clinically relevant and causing meaningful disruptions to the daily lives of Canadians. The study's survey estimates about 2.3% of Canadians over the age of 13 experience more severe climate change anxiety.
And in some cases, those symptoms or those feelings of anxiety can become more severe or persistent and can reach clinical levels of relevance. So that's when it starts to interfere with things like daily life or well-being or causing things like dysregulation.
Severe climate anxiety was found to be more common among younger generations, those living in Northern Canada, and Indigenous peoples. The Federal Auditor General, Karen Hogan, says Indigenous Services Canada is falling far behind on its efforts to address problems in First Nations communities. In a report released today, Hogan says that despite an 84% increase in spending since 2019, Indigenous Services Canada continues to struggle expanding access to clean drinking water and emergency services.
Sustained focus from Indigenous Services Canada to rethink how it delivers programs, while collaborating with First Nations to improve their capacity, is an important step to resolving these persistent issues, improve outcomes, and advance reconciliation.
While Hogan has raised these concerns for over 20 years, she says only 35 long-term drinking water advisories remain in place, with 9 being active for a decade or more. The government of BC proposes changes to its energy rules, a change that would force companies from certain industries to fight for access to power. The government states the new policy will prioritize natural resources and manufacturing projects, rather than the first-come, first-served structure. This leaves artificial intelligence, data centers, and hydrogen export projects to have to bid for their power. The competitive process for AI in data centers is expected to be launched in January, with 300 megawatts of power for AI and 100 megawatts for data centers available every 2 years. More on AI. OpenAI has launched its new own web browser this morning called Atlas. The tool enters direct competition with Google as more users rely on artificial intelligence for answers. The browser faces a challenge against the mainstream Google Chrome, which has about 3 billion users and AI features from Google's Gemini technology. Chrome's success could also be a guide for OpenAI, as it did when it overtook Microsoft's Internet Explorer. Atlas launched today on Apple laptops and will later come to Microsoft Windows, Apple's iOS, and Google's Android. And more news out of the U.S. Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc says a deal with the Trump administration is not about to be finalized. He made comments after the Globe and Mail ran a story saying that the deal on steel, aluminum, and energy could be ready in time for an upcoming summit in South Korea. LeBlanc admits the two sides are making progress.
We're into a level of detail that we hadn't seen previously, but we still have work to do, and my objective is to continue to do that work until we get to the deal.
Now let's take a look at your weather. Metro Vancouver will be experiencing a high of 16 and a low of 8, with a mix of sun and clouds. This morning hasn't seen any sun yet, but clouds are expected to be clearing up by mid-afternoon. That was your news to 11:30. Shit.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
I should have been watching the time.
This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
The single biggest democratic institution in our society are unions, in terms of being able to come together and convene meetings where we're able to debate, discuss, and vote on, and then implement decisions that we've made.
For BCIT News, I'm Cohen Sassman.
And I'm Gabe Liesi. You're listening to the Picking a Scab podcast, where Cohen and I will peel back the layers of unions.
It's loud and historic. Outside many government offices across BC, thousands of workers are on strike. They're members of the BCGEU, one of the province's largest unions. Behind every picket line is a bigger story. What do unions really mean for workers today?
Some say unions are the backbone of workers' rights, Cohen. Others say they're outdated and even restrictive. Today, we're going to be exploring what unions mean in 2025 through two stories. One worker, a truck driver named Gordon Davidson, and a Capilano University student, Nico Williamson, who decided enough was enough.
So we recently back in March, we got certified by the Labor Relations Board to join the Move Up Union. And this month we got a transition agreement finalized, and we will be getting our wage increase at the end of the month, hopefully. Overall, it's been like a 3-year process.
It was the result of years of quiet organizing and a realization that student workers were being left out.
And it just became very clear that we were not considered within it, and we either fall through the cracks or fill the cracks.
For many, this wasn't just about fairness, it was also about survival.
There were several student employees that were thinking about quitting their jobs because they couldn't afford to survive on the wage and hours that they were getting at CapU. So this means that they can continue working the jobs they like without needing to starve or miss rent.
Many would have backed down in the face of adversity, Cohen, and the university did indeed try to complicate the process, but Nico and her team refused to back down.
Basically, they added 40 employees to the list that they never intended on allowing to unionize in order to make the list bigger, hoping that we fail, but we didn't. We grinded, we got those extra cards signed, resubmitted before the deadline.
And while Nico was building a union from scratch, Gordon Davidson was coming back to one after seeing both sides of the trucking industry.
Came from a union company to bulk fuel hauling, which was non-union, and now to these guys, which are union.
For Gordon, that contract isn't just paper, it's actual protection.
So with a union, there's those protections where, if those things are asked of you, you say no, and there's weight behind that. So I left the union job that I was at to work at this bulk fuel haul, because I was promised that I would guarantee $90,000 a year to go up from there, to earn $100,000+ a year. When I looked at what I earned, I was closer to 74, right? And I did at a point go in and talk to the terminal manager. I was like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I was promised. And what I got told is you have to take this extra load or whatever. And that's, where you start getting pushed in your hours of service.
In fact, Cohen, he's not looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. He realizes that unions aren't perfect, but says he'd still rather have one than not.
They negotiate 2, 3, 5-year contracts, and it's fixed. So if things happen within those 5 years, and like wages in the industry kind of go up beyond what the contract does, then you don't kind of catch up with that till it comes to renegotiating the contract.
To understand the bigger picture, we reached out to Paul Finch, president of the BCGEU, the union leading the strike we heard at the top of this episode.
The number one purpose why we exist is to create a democratic organization to represent the interests of working people. And the number two reason we exist, of course, is to secure the best possible wages and benefits for our members.
Finch made it clear and said that unions are still crucial in a day and age where inflation has outpaced wages.
Unions are critical at a base level to ensure that people are paid fairly for the work they do. Yep. But more importantly than that, on top of that, we need to be able to make collective decisions in our society on a democratic basis, and that's not a simple thing.
For Nico, a union meant a living wage and a voice. For Gordon, it meant protection from unsafe demands. And for Paul Finch, it's about democracy itself.
Interestingly enough, though, Cohen, as much as union membership has gone down overall, union membership in the public sector has actually gone up since the late 1990s. It was at 74.5% roughly in 1997 in the public sector, and it's jumped to 76.7% 2 years ago.
And do you have any numbers on the private sector? Does the private sector, is it going up or down?
It's interesting. The private sector is actually going down. It's going in the exact opposite way. It was 21%, just over 21% in 1997, and in 2023 it fell to just above 15%.
So it sounds like government workers, they are becoming more unionized as time goes on, but private workers, it's the exact opposite.
Yeah, and in fact, I spoke with a professor from SFU, Dr. Mark Lear, who can give context as to why this is.
My name is Mark Lear. I'm a historian, and my specialty is the study of labor and left-wing movements. The case that the law has been changed in BC and in other provinces, and federal law has changed to actually make it more difficult to form unions than it was in the 1970s. So it's also more difficult now to negotiate that first collective agreement.
It was very interesting because it's one of the things that he said was union membership has gone down overall, and yet people are still very willing to strike and are still very willing to fight for what they feel is what they feel they are owed, despite the fact that the BC government has actually made it more difficult, legally speaking, to strike and eventually form a union.
And have you noticed that there's any dangers to possibly signing a union card?
That's one of the things that I spoke about with Nico, and I was expecting there to be more hesitancy amongst the students at the university, but they were more than willing to sign union cards and put their names out there, and were just willing to fight for what they believed in. And I think that's one of the reasons why the union drive was so successful, really.
It sounds like if you don't need a union, you don't think about it, but if you need a union, it's life or death.
This episode was produced by Cohen Sassaman and Gabe Liesi from BCIT Radio. Special thanks to Nico Williamson, Gordon Davidson, Paul Finch, and Mark Lear.
For BCIT News, I'm Cohen Sassaman.
And I'm Gabe Liesi. Thank you for listening.
I really do think that, the unions are there to protect the workers, and I believe that companies should be unionized because they do take advantage of employees.